Hello, everybody. This is Joy from Shout for Joy Quilter, bringing you Clue 1 for by the Deep Blue Sea Mystery Quilt. I hope that you've got your squares cut. You have the amount from the clue cut, and you're ready to go. This is not a hard clue at all, but I'm still going to walk you through the different parts. Some people like to have that instruction, and some of you may be quilters who haven't, or people who are aspiring quilters, who don't have a lot of knowledge behind you. So hopefully this will bring you up to speed. Okay, let's get the video going. I gotta turn me off. There we go. Okay, so there's my pre-cut, as in I pre-cut my deep blue sea colors and my sand colors, or my ocean depths, I called it, and my sand colors. So I'm going to move my ocean depths out of the way because it's harder to see. And I'm going to mark the back side of my sand, but my normal tool for marking them is a little small. So I have to get out my 24-inch ruler to get the whole length of that diagonal line. Sometimes as I draw these things, you're not going to see the whole thing. I'm sorry about that. I'm really limited on the space I have for my filming. So I'm just going to do a diagonal line across the back of all of my sand fabrics. And just look at your sand fabrics. This one here, it looks good on both sides. One is a little lighter than the other. I could use this for two different sand fabrics if I wanted to. But I don't think I did it all in this clue. So I'm drawing my diagonal line. Now, some of you may be a little uncomfortable. We have to sew a 1/4 inch on either side. So I'm going to use my ruler, and this is a Creative Grids ruler, and it has a really strong marking for the 1/4 inch. So I'm putting that 1/4 inch right on that diagonal line I just drew. And now I've drawn a second line, which is a little hard to see. I'll zoom in a little bit to show you. I've turned the ruler around because the other side has a strong 1/2 inch mark. So again, I'm lining that 1/4 inch line up from the ruler up on top of my original line. And I just have drawn my 2 1/4 inch lines on either side. So there you should be able to see that I've got 3 lines there. One is the center line, and usually with my stitching, I'm comfortable with that. So now I'm going to take my sand fabrics that I've marked on the back side, and I'm going to, so the right side will go against the ocean depths fabrics. So I'm just going to do one at a time, line them up, one on top of the other. Again, right sides together. I taught a class today, and some of my students forgot that and had to do some unsewing. Now, with how big these squares are, I am going to do some pinning just to make sure that things don't slide around. I really don't. I don't want that to slide around as I move things. And they seem to be sticking together pretty well, but I'm going to use the pins to be sure. Now you notice I'm pinning way out, away from where my stitching line is going to go. And that's intentional because then I don't have to remove the pins until I'm done sewing. So here I'm taking it to the sewing machine, And you can now see those 3 lines. This is the only one I drew them on, because I'm very comfortable with my foot on my machine. So we've got that strong center line, which will go on the quarter-inch edge of my foot. Then I have the 2 other lines. Now, if I'm going to sew and use that quarter-inch line, I'm going to be just cheating a little bit toward the inside. So many patterns call for that scant quarter-inch. And if I kiss that line on the center side of the line instead of the outside side of the line, I know that's a lot of sides, then I'm going to get my scant. It's going to force my scant. So I want to be very careful to get that scant happening. And I'm going to tell you, I sewed, I think this whole line. And again, these are big pieces of fabric. A lot of times I sew like 6-inch blocks, and these are much larger. So it takes a bit more time to sew. But if you have these all pre-cut and all of them marked, you can just assembly line sew them or chain piece and go right from one to the next and then turn them around and come back the other way. And it doesn't take forever. Put on some good music, watch a video, do some streaming and binging of some show while you're doing that. So you're just going to stitch on both sides of that line. Oh my, did I stick another one in there? I'll be honest, I recorded these a day or two ago and didn't think of how long it took to sew that. Now, I speed it up, and you know what happens is that lovely camera on top of my machine bounces, and that's what that really weirdness is. When I go fast, the camera starts bouncing. Because I do sew a little faster, well, more than a little faster than this generally. But I don't have my big camera mount. So there you go. You'll sew on either side of all of those marks. Oh, here we go. So this is showing you the chain piecing where I just go from one and I move the fabric just a little bit so I can start at the edge and pop on to the next one. Saves time. It saves thread. I know thread is not a huge expense. Yes, it seems like you're paying a big amount, but the spools are so much bigger. You can get so much bigger spools than you used to be able to. Okay, once all of them are sewn, and that's just some of my pile, check your numbers on which size you're making so that you know how many squares you need. And we're just going to cut down the center. If you've drawn the line, you can cut directly on the line. Lean up that. It doesn't matter if it's exactly a quarter-inch on either side. Nobody's going to see the inside of your quilt. You can also use your scissors if you feel more confident with scissors. And students often ask me which I use. I use both. It's whichever is handy, I grab and I use. Sometimes my rotary cutter is not available and I grab scissors. It all works. So I'm not going to take it to the iron. I'm going to use my roller instead, just because the iron's on the other side of the room. So this is a seam roller, and I'm first rolling to push those threads into my fabric. I have the dark on the top, my ocean depths on the top, so when I open it up, it automatically leaves the seam behind my ocean depths and not behind my sand. So I'm now going to roll that seam And it does a pretty good job. Not as good as an iron. Your heat is going to soften the fibers a little bit as it goes. So I'm going to iron all of my pieces, all my half square triangles that I've made. Now I'm going to mix it up. I'm not going to use the same two fabrics or the same half square triangles in the same block. I'm going to mix it up. So I have different sand. I have different ocean depths in each of my blocks that I'm making. So I'll grab a couple different ones and pair them up. And like I said, those are big and they're kind of floppy. So I'm going to take them, match them up, right sides together. And I'm going to put the ocean depths on top of the sand and the sand on top of the ocean depths because we're going to be making an hourglass unit. So we want to make sure that we have the opposites on top of each other. Yeah. I hope that made sense. You want opposite fabrics on top of, yeah. So I'm going to line up those seams. They're going to bump up against each other. A lot of times it's called nesting. Now, the most important spot in your nesting is going to be that very center. We can deal with things being off a little bit on the outside edges at this point, but that center is really important to have lined up. Now I'm going to take a pin and put it on either side. And if you'll notice, these pins are flat. So then I can put a ruler over top and the ruler isn't rocking because it's on a flat pin. So now I'm going to make a perpendicular diagonal line. And again, if you need to make your 1/4 inch lines, do that as well. I'm going to just follow the edge of my foot, 1/4 inch on either side of that diagonal line. So take it to the machine. Oh, I hit my camera right at that moment with my forehead. That camera is in my way. When I'm sewing and you're watching this, I'm having the darndest time looking around that camera. And again, I speed it up and I get that bounce. I'm going to kind of hold my seam in that spot to make sure it doesn't get pushed aside. So I'm going to go all the way down, and I usually just put the next one on and put the next one on until I get all of my pairs done. But here I'm going to show you what I do at the end. At the end, I kind of pull it out. I grab those threads. I hold them to the side, and then I just start coming down the other side. That way I don't get a lump of thread under my piece by holding it in the back there. And I also use way less than if I cut the thread and started over on the next one. So it's just a little more efficient. And get them all sewn. It's kind of relaxing to watch someone sew, isn't it? So now I'm going to cut them apart down the center line. I think I'm using scissors in this one because I moved my rotary cutter out of the way and it was not easy to grab. Just like life. If you saw my whole quilt room, it's a real mess. So I'm going to do that to my whole pile. And look at that. There's my hourglass. So I'm going to take and I'm going to open them up. Now notice one triangle is on top of the other triangle when you look at it. So I'm going to pick it up, put my fingers on either side of the seams, and then I'm going to pull the big triangle toward me, or the top triangle toward me, and push away the bottom one. And then I can open up and I can spin that seam on the back. Notice it goes they all go in the same direction. Kind of fun. Now, this is the other half of that same pairing, but look at the big triangles now on the other side. I'm still going to do that. Pull the big one toward me, or the top one toward me, and push away the bottom one. And I still have the option, I still can pop that seam open and I can spin the seam, but it's spinning in the opposite direction. And that is just the nature of making them this way. So I'm going to press them, and now I'm going to trim them to size. And this yours might not need to be trimmed. You might only have to cut off your dog ears. I had to trim mine, and it's called sliver trimming. You don't trim a ton off the block. Now, this is my favorite tool for trimming, is the squared stripology ruler. It has different size squares on it, from 3 inches up to 12.5 inches. The black ones, the black lines, are full inches. Oh, I just went backwards. And the white lines that radiate from the center are your 1/2 inch marks. So you're going to look at the diagonal lines on the ruler. There's black ones and there's white ones. You're going to line up the correct ones. So if you're trimming a block to 11.5, that's going to be white lines. So you're going to find your white diagonal lines and line those up with your seams. If you're trimming to 10 inches, you're going to find black diagonal lines and line them up with your seams. Now, you're going to also have that center. That's what I was just kind of pointing out there. That very center spot is where you're going to start, and then follow your diagonal lines out to your corners of whatever size block you're trimming. And then don't worry about the center. If the center is off in one direction or another, no one will notice it. What's going to be noticed is what happens out at the very edge of your block. So worry more about the edges than you do about what's happening in the very center, because that's where other seams are going to come in. So, because it's a slotted ruler, tip your blade in the slot and cut the 2 sides. Get your sliver trims out of the way, your dog ears. See, that's not a lot of fabric that's getting trimmed off. So again, yours may not need to be trimmed. You may just need to get your dog ears off. Now I'm going to line it back up and do the other 2 sides. And again, I'm not going to cut much off, but it's going to be enough. Boy, that's kind of wonky. I didn't realize how wonky my camera was. I'm running into the cabinet in that spot there. Okay. So here's my other slivers and dog ear. And there you go. So now you will just trim all of those units to whatever size. Now, if you do not have the Stripology Squared or Stripology Extra Large, it's not a bad idea to have a ruler that's about the size that you need to use or for your block. So this one here has a strong diagonal line. It also has a center mark. Again, I start there and then I move things to make sure that my corners, those corners, have the seam out to there. You want that seam at the 1/4 inch mark to be in the right spot. So I can trim up one side and across the top. And again, I'm sliver trimming. There's not a lot I'm taking away, but this makes all my blocks so much sharper. So when I sew my quilt together, everything goes together with more precision. It makes them the best they can be. Kind of like the Army's old slogan. We want our quilts to be the best that we can make our quilts. So trimming. This squares up my block while I'm trimming. Yeah, if you can't do the up the side and across the top, don't worry about it. Just move it one and do one side at a time. Yeah, I didn't get my dog ear. So there you go. Make sure you follow your numbers so you know how many you need for the size quilt that you are making. Okay, come on. Sorry about that. I couldn't find the right button to push to move it back into the video. So I hope this was helpful. Again, refer to your Clue 1 sheet to know how many of these blocks you have to make. And you will you also have instructions on, let me see. What happened here? Something's on top of my clue. I just ripped my clue. Something was on top of it. Okay. So at the bottom of your clue, it tells you what to pre-cut for next time. Again, look for whichever size you're making. If you're making the 84 by 84, the 108 by 108, and make that many, or cut that many squares. Looks like, again, it will just be ocean depths and sand. We're not adding our sea glass colors yet. They'll come later on. Keep holding on to them. So I hope that you have good success with these hourglass blocks. And I hope you post some of your hourglass blocks in the group. I'd love to see them. Have a great week. I'll be back next week with the new clue.